Hello, everyone. Welcome to Theory, covering Lesson 38. We're almost done. You're getting very close to going into speeds. Congratulations. So let's go ahead and do a review for Lesson 37. Okay, here we go. Ready? Number 1, noxious. It was a noxious substance. Number 2, New York. We shopped in New York. Number 3, department. What department does he work in? Number 4, precious. That is a precious dog. Number 5, ordinary. It was just an ordinary day. Number 6, Missouri. The tornado hit Missouri. Number 7, vivacious. She has a vivacious personality. Number 8, Mississippi. We floated down the Mississippi River. Number 9, appreciation. We have a lot of appreciation for the staff members. Or we showed our appreciation by throwing them a party. Number 10, delicious. That is a delicious pie. Number 11, opposite. It is the opposite way. Number 12, conscious. She was conscious after the accident. Number 13, spacious. That is a spacious room. Number 14, North Dakota. It was cold in North Dakota. And number 15, tenacious. She was very tenacious in pursuing her dream. All right, so let's look at those and see how you did. So number 1 is noxious. N-O-K, come back for S-H-S. Number 2, New York. N-O-R-K. Number 3, department. D-E-P-T. Number 4, precious. P-R-E-S-H-S. Number 5, ordinary. Long O-R-D. Number 6, Missouri. M-O-M-O. Number 7, vivacious. Initial V, long I. Come back for initial V, long A, S-H-S. Number 8, Mississippi. M-I-S-M-I-S. Number 9, appreciation. P-R, long E, S-H-G-S. So you're using the whole bank there. Okay. Number 10, delicious. Now there's 2 ways you can write that. We prefer that you write it as D-L-I-S-H-S. That's a squeeze. Delicious, using your initial D-L. Or if you really absolutely do not like that, you can write it as D-E and then come back for L-I-S-H-S, but it's 2 strokes. That's why we recommend that you squeeze it, D-L-I-S-H-S. Number 11, opposite, O-P-S. Number 12, conscious, K-O-N, come back for S-H-S. Number 13, spacious, S-P, long A, S-H-S. Number 14, North Dakota, initial N-D, initial N-D. And number 15, tenacious, T-E-N, come back for long A, S-H-S. Tenacious. All right. So let's get started with lesson 38. Getting close to being done. Congratulations. So if you notice, let's go to 38.1. It says word practice, Final Rbl. So you're going to use your index, middle, and ring finger to strike the RBL. And that's the shoal sound, or you might hear it as shall or shell, shill, anything with the shoal ending. We're using our Final Rbl. Okay? And you might want to practice that for a minute, you know, because it is a little bit of a stretch. RBL. Okay? So let's let's look at the directions here. It says sounds that usually have or words that usually have these sounds are usually spelled T-I-A-L or C-I-A-L or S-I-A-L. Okay? So let's look at some of our words. We have artificial. So we're going to write that as A-R-T, art. Come back for F-I-S-H-L. Okay. Commercial. Now, commercial is a squeeze. We're going to squeeze that. K-M for commer. So K-M, come, E-R. And then you come back for S-H-L. So if that word hits right in the center, if it breaks right on the R, you have to come back for S-H-L by itself, just like commercial. Okay, let's look at the second sentence or the second line. Controversial. K-O-N, come back for T-R, long O, come back for V-E-R, and then again, we have to come back for final S-H-L because we were already using that R. Okay, credential. K-R-E-D, come back for E-N, creden, come back for final S-H-L. Crucial. Now, crucial can be written in one stroke. K-R, long U, S-H-L. So we're squeezing that into one stroke. So if your fingers over on the final side are not on the RBL, then you know you can they're not on any one of these, you know you can squeeze it all in one with the first stroke. But if you already are using the R, then you have to come back for final S-H-L. Okay, crucial. Let's look at differential. We have a brief for different, which is D-I-F. So all we're simply doing is adding S-H-L to the second stroke. Facial, we can squeeze that. F, long A, S-H-L. Glacial, initial G, L, long A, S-H-L. All in one stroke. We want to write it all in one stroke as much as possible to save a stroke. Impartial, I-M, come back for P-A-R. Again, if my finger's on the R, then I have to come back for S-H-L by itself. Inferential, I-N, come back for F-E-R, come back for E-N, come back for S-H-L. Judicial, J, long U, Jew, come back for D-I-S-H-L. Nuptial, N-U-P, come back for S-H-L. Again, if my finger's on the P, then I have to come back for S-H-L. Okay, then we've got potential, presidential. We're dropping that I in the middle and just writing P-R-E-Z, pres, den, D-E-N, come back for S-H-L. Prudential, racial, all in one stroke, R, long A, S-H-L. Residential, sacrificial, sequential. Let's look at sequential. That's a squeeze there. So instead of writing sequential, We're squeezing that. Squen, S-K-W-E-N. Squen, come back for S-H-L. Social, all in one stroke, S, long O, S-H-L. Special, S-P-E-S-H-L. Substantial, torrential. Beneficial, we're dropping the E in the middle there and just writing B-E-N, ben, come back for S-H-L. Beneficial. Official, long O, and then we come back for F-I-S-H-L. Confidential, preferential, influential, exponential, initial. Now I want you to see initial. Most of the time when people are talking fast, you don't really hear the N, you just hear initial. So that is why we squeeze that, initial. So we're going to write that as N-I-S-H-L, initial. So again, it saves a stroke. Otherwise you would have to write it as I-N, in, and then come back for I-S-H-L. So initial. And you can highlight that so it stands out. I don't really call it a brief. I wouldn't say it's a brief because it's more of a squeeze. Initial, N-I-S-H-L. But definitely highlight it so it stands out. Okay, and some of these words you're going to get as briefs once you get into speeds. And you might like that brief and use it, but it's always important to know how to write it out in case you ever forget what that brief is, then you'll always know how to write that word out. So, keep that in mind. All right, let's look on the next page. We have partial. Again, if our finger's on the R, we have to come back for S-H-L. Spatial, S-P long A, S-H-L. Martial, prenuptial. And again, the pre is a short E. All right. Now let's move on over to 38.2. These are practice sentences. Practicing our new words, our shoal words. They put in artificial grass. And again, if it helps you, you can go through all of those words and write it in steno right above the word to get extra practice. Totally up to you. You can also go through and underline any phrases so you don't forget to phrase. Again, let's look at line 2, first sentence. It says, we need to rent a commercial building. Don't forget to squeeze commercial, K-M-E-R, and then you come back for S-H-L, commercial. Everything else there looks good. We really don't have to discuss anything because it's pretty much focusing on the shoal words. Moving on over to 38.3. Review for you. It's reviewing sentences using the initial. So just remember, it doesn't matter if some of these have periods or not. We always use the RBGS, always. Anytime we have, we're using anything like UCLA, KFI, COD, PO box, anything like that, we're just going to use our RBGS. I get that question a lot. Does it matter if there's periods or not? Acronyms, initials, some do, some don't, so we don't ever worry about that. When we're writing it, we always use our RBGS with the letter of the alphabet at the same time, striking that at the same time. So we're just giving you a little review here since it's been a while since we've covered that. And so it's definitely part of the homework. So just remember, some of these have periods and some don't, but that's okay. If that were a test, you would get that as a proper noun at the end of the test. And even if you didn't, you would look it up to see if it has periods or not. So anyway you go, you're covered. All right, so all of these, let's see here. I don't think there's really anything I need to go over with you regarding these. They're all pretty self-explanatory. The only thing I would like to just kind of point out to you, let's look at Line 2, second sentence over. It says, I gave it to ZX Davis. That's somebody's initials for their name. So notice, if you were to transcribe that, you would need, well, on your machine, you would write it ZRBGS, XRBGS, right, at the same time. But if you were transcribing that, you would capitalize Z, period, and then you have a space there, and then X, capital X, period, space. There's a space in between each one because they're initials and they're the initials in someone's name, okay? So just take note of that. If you have that on a test, you're definitely going to need a space there, or that's, you would get, marked off 1 for that. And that's with anyone's name. Again, on line 11, second sentence over, it says Mr. J.P. Morgan is here. Again, it would be J, capital J, period, space, capital P, period, space. Okay. All right. 38.3. All of the rest of those sentences look good. We're going to move to 38.4. We've got some new briefs with states. We've got Oregon, O-R-O-R. And that's not a long O, it's just O. O-R-O-R. Pennsylvania, pen, pen. Pen, pen. Rhode Island, notice it says short I. It's R-I, Okay, and the only reason why I think that it is a short I is because a lot of times people like to write names as 2 strokes, like rye. So I think that's why they just went with a short I, even though we flag it, but I think that's why it always stuck. So Rhode Island is a short I, okay? South Carolina is initial S, final K, initial S, final K. South Dakota, initial S, final D, initial S, final D. Tennessee is 10-10. Texas is tex. Utah is long UT, ute. Vermont is initial V, final T, and initial V, final T. Virginia is V-A-B-A. Washington, W-A-S-H, W-A-S-H, wash. West Virginia, initial W, final F, initial W, final F. Final V. So initial W, final V. Wisconsin is wis, W-I-S, W-I-S. Wyoming is a long I, W-I, W-I. All right, moving on over to 38.5, we've got practice sentences that focus on our new states, our new briefs with the states. And let's go ahead and look at line 4, second sentence over. It says Utah is the beehive state. You're going to want to flag that state because you want to tell your software to capitalize state. You're talking about the beehive state, what it's known for. So that's capitalized. Okay, and let's see, down in line 8, first sentence, it says Mount Rushmore is in South Dakota. You want to flag Mount again, so you're telling your software to capitalize it. And again, on the next sentence over, it says Valley Forge is in Pennsylvania. You want to flag Forge, so it's capitalized. Okay. And everything else there looks good. The only thing I want to point out to you is, let's see, line 2, second sentence over, it says Virginia is in the United States. So we have a brief for United States. It's UNS. UNS. All right. And then, and you will get that down below in section E. So it's coming. It's almost like they used it in a sentence before we got to the actual brief. So just go ahead and take a little note there. Second sentence on the second line. Virginia is in the United States. Right above it, write UNS. Okay. And everything else looks good. 38.6. We've got some new briefs. Let's look at our briefs. Our first one is territory. T-E-R-T. Very easy brief, tert. Then we have member. M-E-M. Mem. Second line, memorandum. Memorandum is the singular form. So we're going to write that as M-E-M. Come back for D-U-M. Memdum. Then we have memoranda. That's the plural form. That's going to be written as M-E-M. Come back for D-A. Memda. Influence. F-L-U-N-S. Influence. Influential. F-L-U-N-L. Minimum. M-I-M. Mim. Maximum. Now maximum is going to be written as M-A-X. Come back for M-U-M. Maximum. I've had students ask me, why can't we just write max? And that's because we have the word max. What is your max reps? So you're going to just write max for that. If you have the proper name max, of course you would flag that. Okay, so that's why we write maximum as maximum. Result, R-U-L-T. Photograph, F-long-O-F, phof. Respond, S-P-O-N-D. Response, S-P-O-N-S. Responsible, S-P-O-N-L. Responsibility, S-P-O-N-T. Previous, P-R long E final V. Previously. Now you have a choice here. Some people have a hard time getting their index, middle, and ring finger on this V and the L. If you have a problem, then you can write it the way that it shows down below. So the first way you would write it as P-R long E final V-L. Okay, so it's kind of like you're getting your, this is a little harder for me because this keyboard chart is spread out. But if you can do it, I highly suggest, and just practice it. That's the way I write it. But if you absolutely can, if your fingers are short and you have a really hard time, you can always write it as P-R long E-V, and then just come back for L-A-E. Okay? All right. Our last brief is United States, U-N-S. U-N-S. Okay, looking on over at 38.7, we have a word practice drill. And just practicing our new briefs. So just remember to separate each one with a comma. And then 38.8 is our practice sentences. Let's look at the first sentence. It says the territory was opened in 1896. You're going to want to flag 1896, okay, to let your software know that we're talking about a year so that it doesn't add the comma, 1896. So flag 18 with the flag, okay? Remember that. We haven't gone through years or talked about it in quite a while. So you're going to want to flag this 18 because we're talking about a year. Now, if you're in speeds and you're writing and you just don't have the time to flag it, that's okay. If it were a test, you'd go back and take the comma out, showing that it's a year, not a number. Okay, let's go to line 3, second sentence over. It says, what are my territorial rights? We just learned the brief for territory, T-E-R-T. So territorial, you come back for Y-A-L. Okay. And everything else there on that page looks good. Let's see here. And then we've got they're going on over to 38.8, practice sentences continue. Everything looks pretty good. If you have any questions about anything, just let me know. I don't see anything that we need to discuss. All right, moving on to 38.9, we've got consonant compounds. These focus on your final RD and then coming back for final Z because it's plural. So let's look at some of these words. Lords, L long O-R-D, and then come back for final Z. Hordes, H long O-R-D, come back for final Z. Guards, that's a ah, kind of a ah sound, so we're going to write as G-A-U-R-D, come back for final Z. Birds, B-I-R-D, come back for final Z. Swords, S-W long O-R-D, come back for final Z. Cards, K-A-R-D, come back for final Z. Now I know I'm going to have some students asking me, why can't we just throw the Z in? When you get into speeds, if that's something you want to do, you can do that. As far as theory goes, we want you to stay consistent. So we want you to come back for the plural. But I do get that a lot, like cards, for example. You have your finger on the R, the D. Why can't you just strike the Z at the same time? And to be honest with you, a long time ago, we used to write it that way. But sometimes what happens is you might strike the Z not meaning to, and it'll show up and maybe you didn't mean to. So so by doing it this way, if the Z shows up with a D, then you know that you did not mean to do that. You're not meaning for it to be a plural. So if you come back with the final Z in a separate stroke, chances are you really meant to have that Z in there for the plural. So that's why the rule got changed. But when you get into speeds, if you want to write it as a plural in one stroke, then that's totally up to you. Okay, so we have fords, long O, herds, chords, long O, curds, wards, yards, nerds, words. Word is not a long O. Backwards, westwards, landlords, love birds. Okay. All right, 38.10, our practice sentences. And the only thing that I really need to point out is on line 5, second sentence over, it says we have owned 5 Fords. So we're talking about an automobile, and you need to flag that so that it shows that it's a proper noun and it's capitalized. Okay. So even if it, for some reason, it doesn't capitalize it for you, then you know that that would be one that you would add to your dictionary. But if you flag it, you want it capitalized. So you may have to do that once you get into speeds. Go through and spend some time just adding proper names. Anytime you flag something that's one syllable, you want it to be capitalized. All right, so that concludes 38. Now we're going to practice, we're going to do a Q&A practice. I'm going to read it one time at 50 and one time at 60. Okay, and again, don't worry about your ending punctuation, and just focus on getting your sign changes and getting the words. Okay, this is going to start off with the court. Okay. All right, I'm going to read this at 50 words per minute. Here we go. Ready? Please state your name for the record. Annie Kendall. Please spell your name for the record. ANNIEKENDALL. Thank you, Ms. Kendall. Counsel, you may question. Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Kendall, after the robber left the store, what did you do? What did I do? Yes. I ran to the owner's home, which is attached to the store. I told him what happened. And then, what did you do? He called the police. I object. Non-responsive to the question. The objection will be sustained. Ma'am, just answer the question that counsel asks you. All right. Counsel, you may proceed. All right, Your Honor. Where did you go? I was standing in the store then. Did other customers come in? Yes, but I didn't take care of them. How about the two boys that were in the store? Did they remain there? Yes, they did. I have no further questions at this time. Counsel, you may question. Did you talk to those two boys about what had happened? Not until the police officers came. All right, so I'm going to read this again at 60 words per minute. And if you need to take a break, feel free to pause it or stop it and come back and practice it again if you need to take a little break, okay? Because that was pretty long. So depending on how you feel, I don't want you to get frustrated, okay? And this will get easier. So I promise you'll get quick at your sign changes. And one thing I want to point out to you is on that first, once the plaintiff attorney starts to question, he asks the first question, Ms. Kendall, after the robber left the store, what did you do? And then the answer was, what did I do? And the attorney says, yes. Our software will not recognize that the witness asked a question. They're just going to assume that the witness answered it, so it'll automatically give you a period. The same goes with the plaintiff. It's probably going to put a question there, even though the attorney just said yes, because it doesn't recognize that, that the attorney's just saying yes, giving a statement. So in that case, if that were a test, you would need to make sure and change those ending punctuations to reflect what it needs to have. So always be on the lookout for that. Don't ever assume that the software is going to punctuate it correctly. Okay, you always have to go in and change it if necessary. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do this again at 60 words per minute. All right, here we go. Please state your name for the record. Annie Kendall. Please spell your name for the record. ANNIEKENDALL. Thank you, Ms. Kendall. Counsel, you may question. Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Kendall, after the robber left the store, what did you do? What did I do? Yes. I ran to the owner's home, which is attached to the store. I told him what happened. And then, what did you do? He called the police. I object, non-responsive to the question. The objection will be sustained. Ma'am, just answer the question that counsel asks you. All right. Counsel, you may proceed. All right, Your Honor. Where did you go? I was standing in the store then. Did other customers come in? Yes, but I didn't take care of them. How about the two boys that were in the store? Did they remain there? Yes, they did. I have no further questions at this time. Counsel, you may question. Did you talk to those two boys about what had happened? Not until the police officers came. So again, if you had a challenging time, go back and practice, take a break, go back and practice it. And that's why we have these, so you can get ready for speeds. Practice it as many times as you need to. Okay, one thing I want you to take a look at with your handout is, if you notice, the witness, when she spells her name, ANNIEKENDALL, if that were a test, you would have a hyphen in between the E and the K, because again, the software is not going to know when a first name starts and ends and the last name starts and ends. So what you would have to do is go in, take out that hyphen, and then put a space there, capitalize the K, because that's the beginning of her last name. So just keep that in mind. And anytime you're writing this Q&A, especially in speeds, don't worry about striking your comma, like thank you, comma, Ms. Kendall. You can do all that in the edit mode if it were a test, okay? So basically you want to focus on your sign changes and your words, okay? And again, like for instance with the sign change, when a plaintiff comes in and says, thank you, Your Honor, if you don't strike the question bank and get the question bank, that's okay too, because sometimes it's very hard to tell if they're going to go right into questioning or if they're going to have colloquy with the court or talk to the attorney. So just know that if that were a test, you would add a byline once she says or he says, Ms. Kendall, after the robber left the store, because in this case, he is talking to the court saying, thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Kendall, after the robber left the store, what did you do? So if you're on your, as long as you identify that that is the plaintiff attorney, you can add the byline once you're in the edit mode after the test is over. Okay, so again, feel free to practice that as much as you want, and take a look at the handout that I've given you. Print that out and really focus on what the punctuation looks like. Okay, where the commas are placed, what's upper and lower case. Okay, and if you have any questions, let me know. And that concludes our lesson 38. We'll see you in the read back portion of the class. Thank you. Bye-bye.